Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. It's such a pleasure to be able to speak to you today. I love your green dress or top.
We could be, our backgrounds are quite matching in a way.
Yeah,
We've both got
coordinated. And of course, we're into the third season of The Great already, but maybe just for people who haven't yet had the chance to see it, maybe you could just set us up a bit with the premise. What can people expect when they watch The Great?
So the third season explores the dynamic in the relationship between Catherine and Peter even more. We're in the kind of third act, really, of their relationship that has been very provocative, let's say. And they are at the very start of this season seeking marriage guidance. So I think that there's an element in some ways that we feel a little bit more at home with them. We've seen them had a baby together. Even though this is the most extraordinary and weird situation, they do have a real relationship. They do have real love and desire for one another, and we care about them. However, politically, huge things are happening. There's a usurper, Pugachev, coming along, which is one of the very amazing, true things that happened. So our show, as you'll know, is very irreverent with historical fact, but often Tony, he writes it, he cherry picks these most amazing real facts, and sometimes the most extraordinary and weird ones are the real ones. And Pugachev is real about the time that Peter was kind of being thrown out and pushed out of court. This guy Pugachev came along in the provinces and claimed to be him, and he apparently made himself to look like him. And so both Catherine and Peter are basically at risk of being kind of overthrown. And there's just been a coup just before the beginning of this, another coup before the beginning of this series. And all of us are fighting for our lives, every single character. So that makes for dramatic and hopefully funny watching. My character is very ready to defend herself at the beginning of this season. And we'll do anything necessary to stay alive and stay in the picture. And so it's been a really fun show for me to do, because I think Georgina I've loved playing her kind of inner stoicism and her kind of inner sense of superiority and status. And she's been challenged a lot during the last two seasons, but it's only now that she's kind of absolutely desperate and in dire straits. And there's another side of her that comes out this season that's this kind of aspirational side. And she, without spoiling too much, is going to put her bid in for power in a way during this season. So that's been really interesting to kind of make that shift and see this kind of resting Tyrannosaurus Rex come out. I don't know why I said that. Probably because I'm wearing green. If I do that, I look a bit like a T-Rex.
And obviously, you know, we've all kind of grown up watching period dramas, but it does feel like we're kind of in a sort of renaissance or a new era of these kind of costume dramas, you know, whether it's Bridgerton or films like The Favourite and The Great, very much sort of takes kind of, you know, those historical settings, but brings something really contemporary. And the comedy is, you know, laugh out loud and also sort of quite dark. But what was the appeal for you jumping on board? And I guess also finding those parallels to today. So even though we're in 18th century Russia, we can obviously find lots that can chime with us in a contemporary setting.
So when I auditioned for the role, I knew it was Tony McNamara who'd written it, and that he had written The Favourite, but The Favourite actually hadn't come out yet. It was just about to come out. So I could see that brilliant people had done The Favourite, and I thought, well, he must be great. And then I read it and just absolutely loved the style and kind of got it straight away. And that's not always the case with acting. Sometimes you just have a feel for something and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to work really hard. But I felt like I really kind of understood and loved. I felt like the comedy was like delicious to read. And I also really enjoyed exactly what you just described, that there is a lot that you can draw from in today's day in the politic from inside of the script. So it's a frame and a story and a setup in which to interrogate power and corruption and class and talk about those difficult subjects that have been so prescient for us all in the world in the last few years. And without putting too fine a point on it, dictatorship and rallying and propaganda. So there's a lot of really difficult subjects that you can kind of see discussed in our show, but it's not discussed openly. It just shows you a picture of a certain imagined version of the past and asks you to draw your own parallels. Mostly it's funny, mostly it's comedy, mostly it's big characters, and it's a particular style that I enjoy because it's so irreverent. And I have done a lot of period drama before, and I've really loved it when I've done so much research, and that research has come out in the show, and I know exactly how to eat this particular thing and which cup to use, and that somebody's going to come around and give me this because that's what they did in Tudor England, or I curtsy in this way. In our show, it was about learning the broad brushstrokes of that stuff and then creating a completely our own world, because of everything else we've just been talking about, because we're saying something about that's universal, that's not actually related to that particular period in Russia, but that's about something universal that's happening now.
And it does, I mean, as you were already mentioning at the beginning, it seems like such an incredible and great character to get your teeth into with Georgina. So maybe you could just tell us a bit about how you prepare to play her. And I guess, sometimes all the costumes and everything maybe could feel kind of like hard work, but maybe it also helps you to kind of really live and breathe that person. And, the way she kind of uses power, I guess, is something interesting there about the kind of power dynamics and the gender dynamics where she's actually quite dominant, for example, in the relationship with Peter. But of course, at the same time, she's kind of supporting him in, some of his less ideal kind of endeavors. So was that kind of like a conflicted role perhaps to play in some ways?
Well, academically, I find her really interesting because I'm looking at people in the public eye who decide to back a certain team that's not desirable to forward their own career, whether they believe in the psychology behind that particular campaign or not. And she's definitely one of those people. She's backed Peter. She's got into a position because, actually, to be fair, it's a totalitarian state and she doesn't have any choice. He is the dictator and he's at the very top. She's married to his best friend, and as far as she's concerned, she's in an excellent position when this series starts to kind of unravel, and she wants to maintain that position of power and money. And then, of course, Catherine comes along with very different ideas, and she has to start to shift, but she doesn't shift for a very, very long time. She doesn't believe in a future where women might have more autonomy or control, or will be allowed to learn things, or have control over their own bodies, or she doesn't. In that period, there isn't like birth control and Tampax. That women are totally beholden to the patriarchy, and so it's completely understandable that Georgina would just be playing to that. That's what she does, and so in some ways, it's quite interesting to see things through her eyes in terms of the massive hurdles that somebody like Catherine the Great would have had to come over. And a lot of the stuff that he writes about Catherine taking her ideas and having a relationship with Voltaire, taking her ideas from Europe and trying to bring them in and meeting huge opposition are sadly true, that she really struggled to actually, the great thing about her is that she attempted to do that. Nobody else had ever done that before, being a woman in that position. But at that time, it was just too early to be able to kind of change things. It took a long time, but we see that struggle, within the show. And you asked something else. What was the other question? Did I cover it?
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine. I'm almost out of time. So just very finally, obviously we don't know yet if there's going to be a season 4, but have you got any ideas about that? Or do you have a favorite moment from season 3? And then also, I know maybe you can just tease a bit of what you've got coming up. I don't know how much you can say about playing Beatrice in Scoop, or if you can kind of tease anything about that.
So I don't know if there's going to be a season 4. I really want there to be, and we all really want there to be. That's all I'll say about that. Everybody wants there to be one within our, everybody that I know in the cast. And my favorite scenes in season 3, there's just, I guess, the big group scenes. I always really enjoy them. There's lots. There's fantastic scenes that you have to learn wonderful kind of dances, and that so much imagination gone into the slightly cult-like traditions of this particular world. So that's the big dancing scenes that that you learn, and you're kind of talking and dancing at the same time. Anything like that, we have to do a lot of work to make the scene come off is really, really enjoyable and satisfying. And then in terms of future work, as you mentioned, I'm playing Princess Beatrice in a film about Prince Andrew, and the interview that he did with Newsnight for Netflix. So that was a very, very different filming experience, and really kind of interesting to research that particular event.
Have any sort of trepidation about that coming out? Because obviously it's kind of the normal amount of controversy around things like that, or is it one of just kind of excitement to kind of bring something like that to screen?
I'm expecting a high level of scrutiny for the project in and of itself. I am very interested to see that subject matter interrogated again. And yeah, I'm kind of ready for that. I think there needs to be more public debate about the culture behind Epstein.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and I can't wait for everyone else to get stuck into the great season 3. Thanks so much.
Thank you.